My name's Ean Tafoya. Born and raised in Denver, Colorado, the west side. I really loved living in Denver when I was a kid. I can remember the brown cloud, and we were still burning our leaves then, and then that went away, and the air got clean. Now it's dirty again. Rode a school bus. I was really fortunate. I lived in Barnum. I never realized until I was an adult what it was like to live in a neighborhood that had a grocery store, a rec center, and a library. It's not something that everybody has access to, but I did, so I'm very grateful for that. It was hilly where I lived. I loved playing in the water. We had gulches where I was. Pretty laid back. I will say, there was affordability for sure. I lived when I was 18, moved to Cheeseman Park. I looked this up actually. My first apartment, $395 for a 1-bedroom, 2 blocks from Cheeseman Park, right? Which is wild to think about now. Same problems. I was hit by a car when I was 7 years old on my bicycle. That's happening still every day for people. Police violence was an issue in my community. I saw a lot of that, and gang violence as well. Some of that still carried on until today. I was really fortunate after the 90s. Mayor Webb and Pena had really invested in youth programming. And so I had a chance to learn to ski, ride a horse. I worked at the Museum of Nature and Science. I worked in anthropology and as a teacher's assistant. I went on to become a teacher. I taught in 5 Points here, actually just a few blocks from here. Went back to school, decided I'd become a horticulture therapist. People don't know what that is. Think art therapy, but with plants. Put your hands in the soil. Graduated from Metropolitan State University, valedictorian of Arts and Science, and I went on to work for the Mayor of Denver on an urban agricultural paper in the Community Affairs Department, over to City Council where I worked in legislative services, eventually served as a secretary of City Council, spent some time in the Public Defender's office, and then I went out and decided to run for City Council when I was 28 years old, really in an act of self-defense, in opposition to the highway expansion in North Denver, an environmental crisis, and the treatment of the unhoused. I'm fortunate I didn't win. I lost a very corporate-backed candidate. Went on to work in media. I made documentaries, I was a radio host, I worked on festivals, and I consulted on campaigns. I've worked on about a dozen ballot issues, local races, state races. And now I'm the state director for an environmental justice organization. I work at the state and federal level. And, I'm here today in an act of self-defense still. My birthday's Earth Day. We need climate action. The air quality's in decline. There's a housing crisis. There are people like me who look and say, can I afford my grandmother's home in the city I was raised in as a 4th-generation Denverite? And I want to see that change. Joyful, athletic, caring. Artistic, driven, and optimistic. Halva, who won a school board race he wasn't supposed to win, and he represents the borderlands of Arizona to Mexico, and he became the first indigenous Chicano person to ever steward natural resources for the U.S. Congress. And he brought forward the Environmental Justice for All Act. And I didn't share this in my story, but my mother got a first-time homebuyer program when I was 14. And where did we move? To the east side, here in Cole, where from my mother's front yard you can see a smokestack. And we're next to the most heavy industrial pollution zone in the entire state of Colorado. And for me, coming to an environmental justice community and now doing that work, he's so inspiring to me because he's willing to challenge the powers that be at the highest level to reform the EPA and so much more. I hope that my legacy as mayor on the steps along the way are that we restore dignity to the humanity that we need in our city. That means public restrooms, access to sanitation, individuals not having to live on the street. We're protecting the water and cleaning our litter, expanding bus access to the mountains and the mountain parks. That's an outdoor equity concern, that our air is cleaner and our air and water are cleaner. That is so important. It's toxic right now. We know it. And we are the generation who can turn it around. And lastly, and I really mean this is the decade that we have to take the most climate action. And I hope that people can look back and say that I was a leader who put in the work and really did build back better.